Picture the scene. You are watching a highly anticipated professional basketball game. You are watching a generational paradigm-shifting superstar operate on the hardwood. But underneath the roar of the crowd, the squeaking of sneakers, and the whistle of the referees, there is a fundamental, deeply toxic breaking point completely fracturing the relationship between that superstar and a completely incompetent coaching staff. We have watched this exact, highly explosive dynamic happen in the NBA. We watched it happen with LeBron James in Cleveland. We watched it happen with Kobe Bryant. We watched it happen with Michael Jordan when Doug Collins first arrived. When a player who processes the game of basketball at an absolute, unadulterated genius level is forced to operate inside a rigid, prehistoric system designed by someone who barely understands modern floor geometry, the friction eventually, inevitably, creates a massive explosion. And for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever coaching staff, that exact explosion was just caught completely on camera. Welcome back to WNBA She Serves. You already know exactly why you clicked on this video. If you are sick and tired of the mainstream sports media networks desperately trying to protect the WNBA establishment, if you are exhausted by the access journalists constantly making excuses for incompetent head coaches, you have found your absolute sanctuary. We do not do corporate spin. We do not protect the billionaires sitting in the executive suites. We give you the raw, unfiltered, high-octane truth about the business, the locker room politics, and the blood sport of professional basketball. Grab a seat, lock in, and turn your volume all the way up to the absolute maximum level. Because today, we are surgically dissecting the most explosive, controversial, and deeply revealing piece of sideline footage that has surfaced in the entire 2026 WNBA season. We are talking about the exact, undeniable moment that Caitlin Clark officially snapped. The exact moment she looked at the Indiana Fever coaching staff, completely abandoned the polite public relations playbook, and let them know exactly how sick and tired she is of their absolute, unadulterated sabotage. If you thought the massive fan boycotts and the empty seats were the biggest problem in Indianapolis right now, you need to brace yourself. Because the locker room culture is actively, violently burning to the ground. Let us set the stage, because absolute context is everything in this league. The Indiana Fever had just secured an 89-78 victory over the Seattle Storm. It was a game where Caitlin Clark essentially bypassed the coaching staff and installed her own high-paced offensive system directly on the hardwood. She dropped 21 points. She dished out 10 massive assists. She completely dominated the flow of the basketball game. In the first half, when Clark was actively calling the shots, dictating the pace, and running the offense her way, the Indiana Fever were a staggering +11. They were completely dominating a highly athletic Seattle Storm roster. But according to multiple reports and inside sources deeply connected to the organization, head coach Stephanie White was absolutely furious. Now pause and ask yourself a logical question. Why in the absolute world would a professional head coach be furious that her team is winning by double digits? Because she was furious at how they were winning. Stephanie White was reportedly incredibly angry that Caitlin Clark had effectively hijacked the offense, completely abandoning the archaic, slow-paced, heavily micromanaged motion system that the coaching staff has been desperately, stubbornly trying to force-feed her all season long. And that is exactly when the cameras caught the altercation. The footage is raw. It is completely undeniable. Caitlin Clark is caught on national television, engaged in a highly heated, incredibly intense argument with the Indiana Fever coaching staff on the sidelines. She is visibly exasperated. Her body language is absolutely screaming. She is gesturing wildly, explaining something, defending herself, and actively pushing back against whatever archaic, restrictive instruction is being yelled at her by the assistants. She does not back down. She snaps on them. She keeps talking. She keeps defending her offensive reads, her transition pace, and her elite basketball IQ. She looks absolutely, 100%, completely done with their micromanaging nonsense. Now listen to me very carefully. You will have people in the mainstream media, the absolute Stephanie White apologists, who will look at this leaked footage and immediately try to tear Caitlin Clark down. They will jump on their soapboxes and say, "Oh, this is a terrible look. She is uncoachable. She is acting like a diva. She is disrespecting coaching authority. She needs to humble herself and fall in line." Let me be incredibly clear about this. If you are an educated Indiana Fever fan, this raw sideline footage is the absolute best thing you've seen all year long. This is not a player being a diva. This is the greatest offensive mind in the history of women's college basketball, finally standing up to a stubborn coaching staff that is trying to forcefully shove her into a stagnant, circle motion offense straight out of the 1990s. Caitlin Clark processes the basketball floor infinitely faster than the people holding the dry erase clipboards on the sidelines. She sees the weak side defensive rotation before the defense even initiates it. And when an insecure coaching staff continuously attempts to micromanage every single dribble, every single pass, and every single shot of a player with that level of generational genius, the player has an absolute professional obligation to snap back. We know exactly what has been happening behind closed doors. We have spent weeks on this channel tracking the absolute sabotage. We watched Stephanie White bizarrely bench Caitlin Clark in the absolute middle of a hot streak. We watched White actively refuse to praise Clark's historic 17-point fourth-quarter explosion in a previous press conference. We watched White draw up a final game-tying play for Kelsey Mitchell, a player who routinely finishes games with 0 assists, instead of the best clutch shooter in the building. And now, we are seeing the exact, explosive psychological toll that systemic sabotage is taking on the franchise player. Caitlin Clark is sick of it. The fans are sick of it. The entire basketball world is absolutely sick and tired of watching a multi-million-dollar Ferrari being driven by a coaching staff like it's a broken-down golf cart. And it is becoming painfully, glaringly obvious to everyone paying attention. Stephanie White took the head coaching job in Indianapolis because she wanted to attach herself to the history and the massive, unprecedented media spotlight of the franchise, not because she actually wanted to coach Caitlin Clark. She wants to be the star. She wants her defensive guru system to be the absolute reason the team wins. And she is actively, vindictively punishing Clark for refusing to conform to a half-court system that simply does not work in the modern high-paced WNBA. But the sheer, unadulterated hypocrisy of the coaching staff is what makes this situation completely unbearable. After the game, Stephanie White stepped up to the podium for the post-game press conference. Knowing that the temperature in the room was boiling, knowing that the sideline altercation had been caught on camera, and knowing that the fan base was currently executing a massive financial boycott that resulted in thousands of empty seats, White suddenly desperately attempted to play nice. A reporter asked her about Caitlin Clark's incredibly efficient performance, and Stephanie White, the absolute master of political deflection, finally offered some incredibly hollow, carefully calculated praise. She talked about Clark's burst. She talked about the lift in her shot. She said, "She looks strong. She looks loaded in her actions. Her movement patterns and her bursts are back." Do not be fooled by this transparent public relations spin. Do not let the sudden, forced compliments erase the dark reality of what was caught on the sideline camera just minutes prior. Stephanie White is specifically praising Caitlin Clark's physical attributes, her burst, her strength, her movement patterns, because those are biological things the coaching staff cannot possibly control. But notice exactly what she did not praise. She did not praise Caitlin Clark's elite basketball IQ. She did not praise Clark's incredible ability to read the defense and orchestrate the floor. She did not praise Clark's genius decision to take absolute control of the offense and generate a massive +11 advantage in the first half. Because publicly acknowledging Caitlin Clark's basketball genius would be a direct, devastating admission of her own strategic failure. Stephanie White is perfectly happy to call Caitlin Clark a great athlete, but she absolutely refuses to surrender control of the offense to her. And that is the exact fundamental reason why the massive sideline altercation happened. Caitlin Clark is desperately trying to win professional basketball games, and the coaching staff is desperately trying to win an internal power struggle. When you have a coaching staff that is more concerned with controlling the media narrative and forcing a broken system than they are with actually maximizing their $560 million franchise player, you are actively building a toxic, doomed organization. And while all of this is happening, the Simon family ownership group, General Manager Amber Cox, and President Kelly Krauskopf are sitting on their hands, completely silent, while the most valuable asset in the history of their franchise is openly fighting for her professional life on the sidelines. When pressed by the media about the bizarre, constantly shifting rotation changes, Stephanie White claimed, "We're 4 games in with a lot of new pieces, so we're trying to figure out what the best combination of players is for the best net outcome." 4 games in, you are a professional basketball coach making a massive, highly guaranteed salary. Your entire job description is to understand your personnel combinations before the season even begins. You do not use live, highly competitive regular season WNBA games to dangerously experiment with completely dysfunctional lineups, while your star player is literally begging you to just let the offense flow. This sideline eruption from Caitlin Clark is the ultimate blaring warning sign. It is a massive red flare shot directly into the night sky over Indianapolis. She is not going to quietly accept the sabotage. She is not going to politely smile for the television cameras, while a head coach with a massive ego problem actively tries to derail her career. She is fighting back. And the front office has a massive multi-million-dollar decision to make right now. Do you back the archaic, stubborn coaching staff that is currently presiding over a massive fan boycott and thousands of empty arena seats? Or do you back the generational superstar who single-handedly resurrected your entire franchise from the absolute graveyard? You mathematically cannot have both. The friction has officially reached the point of no return. This is WNBA She Serves. We are the only channel on this platform willing to look past the fake PR smiles and expose the absolute civil war happening in the trenches of professional basketball. If you respect the raw, uncompromising truth, if you appreciate the deep, psychological analysis that the mainstream media is terrified to touch, do not just sit there. Smash that subscribe button right now and join the fastest-growing community of highly educated basketball fans on the internet. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm and force YouTube to push the raw reality to the masses. And most importantly, I absolutely need to hear your unfiltered thoughts in the comments section below. What did you think about the leaked sideline footage? Is Caitlin Clark completely justified in exploding on the coaching staff? Do you think Stephanie White's post-game praise was totally fake? And how much longer can Kelly Krauskopf ignore this massive, highly public power struggle? I want to read every single theory, every single tactical breakdown, and every single hot take you have. Drop them in the comments right now. Hit that notification bell because the civil war in Indianapolis has officially begun. And we will be right here, breaking down every single moment.